What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitching Ninja's filthiest pitches of the day. Remember, before we get to those pitches, hit that subscribe button. Join Ninja Nation. Be a part of the biggest and best daily baseball show on YouTube. And now, without further ado, here are my filthiest pitches of the day. For a day where there wasn't a lot of MLB games, there was certainly a lot of great pitching. We're going to start out with Logan Allen, who had 5 Ks and 4 scoreless innings. He had these wicked sweepers and changeups. He faced J.P. Sears, who had 8 Ks and 7 innings, giving up 2 runs, and relied mostly on his fastball and slider combo to get those Ks. Sears has quietly put together a few really good K outings. Bryce Elder was outstanding yesterday with 6 strikeouts and 7 scoreless innings, giving up only 2 hits. A real surgical performance by Elder, who had these sinkers, changeups, and sliders, and got this Schwarber to Schwarber on a slider, where Schwarber didn't even wait for the appeal. He was like, "You got me, I'm out of here." Elder battled Aaron Nola, who was also really good, with 5 strikeouts and 6 scoreless innings, giving up only 2 hits. Nola's two-seamer was wicked. He painted with this two-seamer, and this one had 18 inches of run and turned Arcia into a pretzel. Of course, Nola wasn't all two-seamers. He also had these knuckle curves, which were filthy. Shane McClanahan had 3 Ks and 3 2/3 innings, giving up 2 runs, and of course had his sick changeups. Pure filth. He had to leave the game early due to back tightness, and you can tell his velo was down a little bit. McClanahan said, though, that it's just precautionary. Brian Wu had 5 Ks and 5 1/3 scoreless innings, giving up only 2 hits, and really relied mostly on his mid-90s fastballs, which were certainly enough to make you go, woo! Jake Irvin had 6 Ks and 6 innings, giving up only 1 earned run. He relied chiefly on these fastballs and curveballs, and I thought this does a good job of showing why you might take a fastball right down the dick. You can see this wicked curveball, and then this fastball travels in the same tunnel. As a hitter, you've already looked bad on that curveball once, and you weren't going to get fooled. And you see something looking just like that curveball, so you take it, but it ends up being a strike on a fastball right down the middle. Irvin battled Tommy Henry, who had 5 Ks and 6 2/3 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had these nasty curveballs, as well as a couple of pitches out of the zone, including this one that was chalked. Not sure how you get that call. Joe Ryan had arguably the best outing of the day with a 9-strikeout shutout. He relied a ton on his fastballs, changing eye levels, and then mixed in some wicked splitters. I love Ryan's splitter because he got it from my channel. After listening to my interview with Kevin Gausman, he basically stole Gausman's grip. It's not really stealing, though, it's borrowing. But it's another reason to make sure you subscribe to this channel. You can see the origins of pitchers picking up new pitches. Ryan outdueled Justin Garza, who had 2 Ks in 1 inning, giving up 3 runs, and had this cutter and slider. Mitch Keller had 5 Ks in 7 innings, giving up only 1 run, and had a good mix of 4-seam fastballs, 2-seamers, and cutters. He faced Braxton Garrett, who is my co-filthiest pitcher of the day yesterday, because he had an amazing 13 strikeouts with no walks in 7 innings. Garrett relied on his mix of 2-seamers, sliders, and cutters, and just really outstanding sequencing all game. He had a ton of called strikes on his 2-seamers, because just as hitters were expecting a slider or a cutter, he'd work that in. And despite not having overwhelming velocity, his pitch mix was fantastic. And if you're guarding against a wicked slider or cutter and you get a 2-seamer, you're going to be hosed. Just a fantastic outing all around by Garrett, who became the first lefty in Marlins history to have a 13-strikeout game with no walks. My other co-filthiest starter of the day was Blake Snell, who had 11 Ks in 6 scoreless innings. Snell became only the second Padre to have 11 Ks or more in 3 consecutive games. The other, Jake Peavy. Snell is on a stretch where he's arguably been one of the best pitchers in the National League, and his odds at FanDuel for the Cy Young Award still sit at plus 4,000. Snell relied on a brilliant mix of fastballs, changeups, sliders, and curveballs, getting a sword on this curveball. Here's an overlay that shows you one of the reasons Blake Snell is so tough. Here's a slider in the dirt, and then he tunnels a fastball over that's taken for a strike, getting the backwards K. So you can see, even if you were smart enough to lay off that slider at least once, you can still get hosed if the pitcher tunnels a fastball with that slider that was taken for a ball. I also did an overlay of his fastball and slider from this home plate view so you can see how consistent his mechanics are and how tough it is to distinguish those pitches. Just an absolutely brilliant outing from Blake Snell. In the College World Series, it was probably the best college pitching duel I've ever seen. You had soon-to-be first-rounder Rhett Lauder, whose command and mound presence reminds me a little of Zach Gallen, versus Paul Skeens, who we all know is a generational talent, and soon to be a Major League ace and probably a Cy Young Award winner relatively soon. Lauder had an amazing 72% strikes this game, with 6 strikeouts and 7 innings, giving up no runs. He had his mid-90s fastball. Here's a home plate view of a sword he got on Trey Morgan. This was on a mid-90s two-seamer. Morgan is an outstanding hitter and was made to look really bad here. Also, here are some home plate views of his sliders and changeups. And he even got a swing and miss on a changeup that ended up behind a hitter. Lauder's stuff and command are both fantastic. And his changeup is arguably the best changeup in college. Here's his changeup grip from his interview with me.
I'll go to my changeup's kind of unique. It's kind of like that. I got the thumb right underneath too, but I'm all fingers. I'm just over the two seam, not along it, which is a little weird. I don't know why I picked that up, but I did. I've thrown like this since like middle school, thumb underneath like that. It's super weird.
Are you pronating it too, or?
I don't try to. I do it naturally. So I really just have to throw it with my middle finger. My middle finger stays on the ball. It's the last finger to touch the ball. So I just throw in my middle finger right down the middle.
Lauder battled Paul Skeens, who was legendarily good himself. Skeens was pitching on short rest, but you couldn't tell it from his performance. He threw 8 scoreless innings with 9 strikeouts and had 68% strikes. And I thought I'd show you some home plate views of what it's like to hit against Paul Skeens. First, here's an at-bat with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, followed by 2 88-mile-an-hour sliders. Next, here's 101 miles an hour coming at you at your knees. By the time you figure out whether that's a slider, a fastball, a changeup, that pitch is already by you. Next, here's a Skeens 90-mile-an-hour changeup. And here are a few sliders. Here's a front hip slider for a strike, and a mix of some other sliders, including this wipeout slider. So next time you're yelling at your screen or a player, asking how can you swing at this, you can now see how every hit in baseball is a minor miracle. And it also should give you some sympathy for umpires who may miss a call or two. Skeens also had this amazing combo of a buckle and a sword that was somehow fouled off here, which he found pretty amusing. Skeens was on such a roll that Wake tried to get him out of his rhythm with this offensive conference. And you can see how worried Skeens was about this as he's looking at his nails. Spoiler alert, the offensive conference didn't work. One last thing, I have to give a shout out to Trey Morgan for this absolutely ridiculous play on this squeeze play. Morgan's the most talented fielding first baseman I've ever seen in college. And this play saved LSU's season. Now on to my filthiest relievers. Scott Barlow had these curveballs. A.J. Minter K'd the side with his fastballs and changeups. Andrew Chafin had these dirty sliders. A.J. Puck had this sweeper. Pete Fairbanks had this 100-mile-an-hour fastball and 88-mile-an-hour slider. Craig Kimbrell K'd the side looking and not looking without throwing a strikeout pitch in the zone. IKF did his best Shohei Ohtani imitation by getting a strikeout and then hitting a home run while he was still in the game as a pitcher. Move over, Shohei. There is a new member of the Pitchers Who Rake Club. You're still the king, though. Gregory Soto had this 102-mile-an-hour heater and 101-mile-an-hour heater. My filthiest reliever yesterday was Aroldis Chapman. Chapman had this 102-mile-an-hour two-seamer that broke 16 inches. Yikes. And then this ridiculous overlay of this 103-mile-an-hour two-seamer and 91-mile-an-hour backdoor slider. You can see how unfair that combination is, not only because of its extreme velo, but they also switch places on the way to the plate. Good freaking luck. And now my pitching ninja moment of zen. Davey Martinez was upset because of a couple of bad calls by the home plate umpire, Doug Eddings, who was definitely bad, so he decided to go on this legendary rant. And no, you don't need to have John Boy do any lip reading. You can hear it. Because of the combo of a hot mic and nobody at the game.
This may not end well for Davey.
You gotta love this old-time Earl Weaver type explosion.
Oh my gosh, Davey's getting his money worth now.
What is up, everybody? I've got some great news for you. Today is another Pitching Ninja Profit Boost Token Day at FanDuel. FanDuel is giving a 25% profit boost on any MLB straight bet from June 23rd to June 25th. I would use mine to take Jesus Luzardo in the Daily Strikeout Leader Special, only at FanDuel. Although, if you're looking for a little longer odds on the Daily Strikeout Special, I may take a look at Kodai Senga. My picks of the day today are a 3-leg parlay. I'm going to take Jesus Luzardo for 7 Ks or more, Kodai Senga for 7 Ks or more, top it off with Brian Bayo for 5 Ks or more. What would your picks of the day be?